On today's podcast, we have a very special and inspiring guest, Jeffery David, hit songwriter, record producer, and manager of the hit act Echosmith. I've known Jeffery for about 2 years. I've had him as a guest in my class before. He is an incredibly inspiring guy. This is a guy who really understands work ethic. He understands that whole concept of casting vision, and you are not going to want to miss what he has to say. He has built this band right from the ground up and built a career for himself through hard work, dedication, focus, and commitment. Insiders, are you ready? Welcome to MUBUTV's Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to having a successful career in the new music industry. Here are your hosts, Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight.
Welcome back, Insiders, to another episode of the MUBUTV Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage your music career. On today's episode, we have an inspiring show for you today as we sat down with hit songwriter, producer, independent label owner, and artist manager of the hit act Echosmith, Jeffery David. We discuss his church beginnings, the need for a very strong work ethic, casting vision, developing an act from the ground up, and all that entails, including building the team and much, much more. You won't want to miss it. But first, a word from our sponsor. Hey Insiders, are you looking to take your music career to the next level? Then you need to know about the Music Business Registry. The Music Business Registry is the leading music industry publisher of the most up-to-date contact information for major and independent record label A&R, music publishers, artist managers, music attorneys, music supervisors, and much, much more. The Music Business Registry is the trusted industry standard and source serving the music business community for over 28 years with the most accurate and up-to-date contact information available. Their titles include the A&R Registry, the Film and Television Music Monthly, the Music Publisher Registry, and the Music Attorney Registry. All of their publications are available in print, PDF, CSV, or online subscription. Visit them now at musicregistry.com and receive a 10% discount by using coupon code MUBUTV10 at checkout. That's musicregistry.com, coupon code MUBUTV10. When you're ready to put your music to work, musicregistry.com.
Welcome back, Insiders. Today's featured interview is with an extraordinary man, producer, songwriter, and artist manager, Jeffery David. I became aware of Jeffery, I guess it must have been a couple years ago, and I invited him to a class of mine, and he was so inspirational.
Yeah.
He really was so inspirational. And just, his whole story, which I think you guys, ladies and gentlemen, will find really inspirational as well. Started as a songwriter, developed a career in the church, as a musician, as a songwriter, working with musicians, really learned the foundational elements of so much of what he was doing, and ended up doing in his career. And that was a real foundational element for him. And, he talks so much about, the importance of teams and the importance of believing in yourself. But the one thing that he said that I thought was so fascinating was the concept, and he'll discuss this, of casting vision.
Yeah.
Casting vision, never ever. And what does that mean? It means never ever letting go of what it is that you want to achieve, just never ever forgetting that. That's so important to remind yourself that you have to do that daily almost,
Absolutely. And what I got out of this interview is one of my favorite interviews that we've done, was the chemistry of co-writing and about finding that person or that muse, which I can relate to directly on that. And also his work ethic. I thought his work ethic was just, it was mind blowing. When he talked about, his goal was like, okay, I'm going to do 100 emails every day in and out. It was just like, wow. And I thought one of the other key things, which is another major trait of managers to have, and I think that's why musicians can make such great managers if they're transitioning into that world, is how he was keeping the enthusiasm of the band going. I remember there was a part in the interview where he talked about, they had a bunch of interviews. I guess it was in Germany, if you recall.
Yes.
And, the Germans have a tight-knit schedule, and they'll have you doing 100 things in one day.
Right.
And so he had to kind of give them that pep talk and give them those inspirational words for them to realize what was the vision and what were they ultimately achieving. So I thought that was really amazing, and about taking risk. He took some amazing risks.
Oh, yeah. Personally, financially, professionally, with himself, with his career. Yes.
Absolutely. So with that, Insiders, we're very excited to introduce our featured interview with Jeffery David.
Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, good to be here, guys.
Good to talk to you. Let me start out. Did you always know that music was going to be your professional career path?
You know, I did. Ever since I was a little kid, once I took piano lessons and I learned one song, I was so hooked. And I actually couldn't stop. I didn't want to go to school. I'd practice every second. My parents knew, like, this was just what I was made to do.
Okay, so was your path into music through being a musician, or was it through other means?
Totally the music route. I was a musician, and I played in bands. I started on piano, and I was a classical kid, and I was studying, practicing something like 3 hours a day. I was really committed to it. I grew up down in San Diego, and but what I learned really quickly was, as I started to do like piano competitions as a little boy, these classical competitions, I would just get slaughtered by these kids who just, if my 3 hours was a lot, they were doing 5 or 6. And these kids from all over the world, from Poland, Korea, Japan, they were just kicking my butt. And I realized it's like, I don't think I want to go the classical route. So I got into punk rock, and I was, an indie kid. I loved all the alternative stuff growing up. And then I learned how to play drums in junior high, and I was playing in bands as a drummer, and I was playing in bands as a piano player, keyboard player, and singing and stuff like that. It was great.
Wow, amazing. Jeffrey, this is Eric. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We're so excited to have you. I have a question for you. You've had a successful career as a hit songwriter, with cuts by Seal, Zedd, Steve Aoki, O-Town, Christina Grimmie, and Echosmith. Can you tell us how you started your professional songwriting career?
Yeah, I mean, I got a late start, guys. So it's, I started having kids really early. I got married at 22. My wife was 18. Wow. And she was pregnant, right away. So my first, really, I call it the breeding ground that taught me everything was really from 22 to 40. I was really involved on staff at these really large non-denominational Christian churches. And I was the music director and arts director at one church. Now it's something like 14,000 people coming a weekend. And it just taught me so much. I was making records. I was having to write a song every week on whatever the pastor's message was. I would arrange horns, strings. I had ska bands. I had some of the girls from En Vogue, Chick Corea, all kinds of people were going to my church and or involved in the records I'd be making. And it just taught me so much. So then that whole time I was doing that, I was producing indie records, and that was growing at the same time. And then I just made the break at 40 years old with 3 out of my 4 kids in private school, full mortgage. My wife didn't work. She was a stay-at-home mom. She worked, but she was a stay-at-home mom. She wasn't bringing home any money. And I broke out and I said, I'm going to produce records and write songs for a living. And I'm going to really focus in on a band that I was developing at the time. And it started at 40.
Wow.
So, it's a good testament that's like, there's no rules. There's no path to how you're going to get there. You just have to really go for it. That's the key, is just staying consistent,
And how are you, just as a parent and doing all that, how are you able to juggle all of that?
Well, it's not easy. No one's perfect at it, that's for sure. Yeah. It's just, but because of the kind of family that I was committed to have with my wife too, right, that we were just going to have a super musical, loving, really happy kind of family. We were sure of the kind of family environment we wanted. So all this stuff was just an extension of who we already were and what we were doing anyway. And all my kids were heavily, involved in music from day one,
Jeffrey, I want to return to the songwriting aspect with you for a minute creatively. And, as I'm sure chemistry, it plays such an important part and is also a very rare element when you're co-writing with someone. So I guess I want to explore with you who, are some of the most memorable co-writers that you've had great chemistry with throughout your career?
Oh, that's a great question. I've written with so many different people, and it really is all about chemistry. It isn't about credits and you get set up with these people by your publisher that you're coming in, you're all nervous, they have a current single out or something like that, and it doesn't mean what you're going to create is going to be great. So one of my favorite collaborators of all time, of course, is Seal, and that was just such a natural collaboration, and it was a friendship. So a lot of times in my sessions, I really want to try to make a friendship connection if I can. I'm one of these people that that is super relational. I care what people think. So, my core, I want to like you. I want you to like me. I want us to have fun. I want this to be memorable, because I live in this whole kind of mindset of like, I'm always fast forwarding to what my end of my life will be. And I always fast forward to this scene, like when it's my last, my last day on earth and I'm on that bed, and let's say, hopefully I'm 105 years old, healthy. I'm always thinking, what do I want my life to be like? So I try to live that way. So I don't want to write with anybody I don't feel like writing with. So I'm really, really intentional of who I say yes to and who I tell my publisher or myself who we go after. But Seal was one of them. I have a real serious connection with a band called Echosmith. We get into it later. There's a lot of connections there. A writer named Phil Bentley, I've written a lot of songs with. Danielle Brisbois, she's Brisbois, everybody says her last name differently, but Danielle, she's amazing. She wrote like a lot of the Feel the Rain on Your Skin and stuff like that. Just a lot. I think those are my favorite right there. A girl named Leah Haywood, who's really great. I've written with Busby before. He was great. All kinds of people, but my main people that I love the most, that I write with consistently, is people like Phil Bentley and Echosmith. And myself. I write a lot of songs alone.
Yeah, I'm so jealous of you, because Seal is like one of my favorite artists of all time.
Yeah,
so
he's a
the
great
fact
one.
that you were in the same room with him writing music is amazing. So
Yeah, he came to our house for 2 months every day. It was really fun.
Wow. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it
So
just
you really
seems like-
got to know him as a person.
Yeah, it was a real connection. He ate dinner with us. He went to go get ice cream. We went to the movies. I mean,
Wow.
He was just like inserted into the family. And it was at a time, the first time I started working with him, it was at a time that he was going through a really hard divorce, and it was very public.
Right.
And it was interesting, because whenever we have guests over the house, and just a fun tidbit is the family and I, again, we've always been really intentional about the kind of family we wanted. So everybody's like really involved. Whoever comes over, all my kids are like meeting them. We're all having fun. We're having dinner together. One of the things we love to do is play this game called 50 Questions. And that's where someone stands in front of our fireplace. We would all sit on the couch, and we can ask them anything in the world that we want to. And they have to agree. They don't have to do it. But if they do agree to do it, any question is on the table. And we did that with him. And I remember Sydney, my daughter, the last question she said to him was, she goes, are you okay? And are you happy right now? That was the 50th question. And he paused, and then he started to get a tear in his eye. His eyes got watery, and he's just like, I am. It's hard right now, but I'm here with a family that I can tell loves me. We're having amazing food, and we're writing some of the best songs in my life. I'm happy. And it was just so sweet, and that was a cool memory.
What album was that during where you were writing for him?
That's his one called the 7 album.
Yeah, okay.
And that was really cool. I had 3 songs on there with him. We ended up writing 9, and we're always talking about what else to release and things to work on, because we wrote some great songs at those 2 months.
I can imagine. Jeffrey, did you pursue your first publishing deal, or did they come to you?
I pursued everything.
Okay.
And my first deal was with Ritch, and it was an admin deal. And it was right as one of my bigger songs was starting to take, and it was a song called Cool Kids. And I signed a deal with them, and I waited though. I could have signed earlier deals, and something didn't feel quite right, but it was all me. It was all me pursuing.
Okay.
Let me ask you, as a follow-up to that, Jeffrey, what made you, for our audience, I want to sort of explore what made you want to pursue an administration deal, which is different than a publishing deal, in that administration is merely a sharing in the income rather than a sharing in the copyright. Was that a conscious decision on your part? That you made that distinction when you did your deal?
Not at first. At first, it was just like I wanted a partner. And I knew that I was hustling so hard on behalf of my stuff and on behalf of a band I was managing at the time, Echosmith. I was hustling so hard. I was just really wanting more partners to be hustling too. And I personally at the time, I didn't care whether it was admin or a co-pub deal, but it was admin. And that's just how Ritch does their deals. And I loved it. We recouped right away. I got another advance. They were a great partner. But I was still hustling just as hard. I really never stopped hustling. I'm still pursuing every single day.
And there was something else that you mentioned earlier before we got into that exact question about your first publishing deal, that you said that you had a couple of opportunities to do it before, but your gut was telling you something that was different. What was it that you just didn't feel right? We're always talking about that on the show, about how a lot of, people that are in our business do a lot of things on gut. And so I'm just curious as to what was it about those first initial deals that you did versus the one that you ended up doing with Ritch that kind of swayed you one way or the other?
Well, I think subconsciously we all can tell when you meet a person, another human being. You can really tell there's these subtle signs, whether you know body language or what words mean or how someone may be manipulating or whatever it is. There's just something about it that gives you a feeling that this is an okay, or this is a safe partner, or this is a good advocate for what you're doing. And if I'm getting the sense that you're not going to work as hard as I am, then for me, that's it. I don't even care if our personalities rub a little bit, or you're a little abrasive, or whatever it is. I don't care if you're going to go grind and look under every rock for me. I don't care. But if I don't sense that you're going to work as hard as me, then that's my gut feeling that I'm not going to do it.
So it's values based. I mean, you're looking at those values of, what's most important.
Totally. 100%.
Okay. Jeffrey, I want to explore another area with you in that you've also had hundreds of syncs. And you've also worked in composing for commercials. What, for our audience, can you talk about what is that world like? Because it's different than just straight ahead songwriting and getting cuts.
Yeah, that's really interesting. For me, with the sync stuff, just to back up a little bit, this is really related. And Ritch, this isn't to toot your horn, but this is just facts on the way this all worked for me. At 40 years old, just to back it all up, because syncs really paid a lot of the bills at first. When I had to go grind and say, I'm going to quit this very secure world of being a music director of these huge churches, and I had the side income of indie records, I had to really hit the ground running. I couldn't do what a 20-year-old dude could do, which is go live for $500 a month and share an apartment with 10 guys and make beats all day and just sort of figure it out. I literally, being really forthcoming, I had to make $10,000 a month, or I was in serious trouble. I'm not kidding. And So what I did immediately was I really realized the very first thing was on my mind was I needed access. It was the most important part into basically going from the church world, which is a completely different world, into the music business where I didn't know maybe more than 4 or 5 people. And so I subscribed to your service back then. It was called Music Express. What's it called now, Ritch?
Oh, MB Lists. Yeah.
Okay.
The database.
So I subscribed. Yeah, the database. So I subscribed to this list. I'm pretty sure I paid something like, I did all the ones that I could get. I think it was $99. So every single day, and that's a current list of everyone's email and phone number. I was never going to call anybody. I was only going to email, and I love email. So at 40 years old, I am on a regular basis, I'm not kidding, sending out a minimum of 100 emails 5 days a week all over planet Earth.
Wow.
Introducing myself as a songwriter, giving links to songs, giving links to instrumentals. And so what I did, how I started getting syncs was I was doing so many indie records, and I would write all these songs. For the most part, I wrote most of the songs, and I'd produce stuff. And songs that didn't make the record, a lot of times I would just take those instrumentals and I would send them out all over the world for other guys to top line and write songs to, but I also sent them to music supervisors from your list, Ritch, that I got. So my first syncs, a lot of them were instrumentals or little pieces of songs, and I wasn't specifically writing for TV. Like people are like, oh, this is a TV project. I wasn't doing that. I was just writing songs nonstop. So I was doing a session 5 days a week, also sending out 100 emails minimum 5 days a week, and all of a sudden, stuff just started landing because these sync people, especially like MTV and stuff, their sync fees are very low.
Right.
But it's all about quantity. You know what I mean? So it's just like if you have, 10 songs in the hills, that's $300 here, that's $400 here, maybe it's $1,000, sometimes it's $1,500, but a lot of times it's like $300, And so it was all about quantity. So for me, it was still just writing songs like crazy, constant output, and then constantly blasting out in a really authentic way these emails to every single kind of person you could imagine. And if I was watching TV and I saw a show that I really liked, I would look at who the music supervisor was, and I would look it up in your database, and I would email them. Oh my gosh, I love this episode on Grey's Anatomy. I'm obsessed about this song. I just want to let you know I'm a writer and producer. Here's a link to my stuff so you can use it. Have a wonderful day. You're doing a great job. Love, Jeffrey. Super authentic and kind. And then sometimes I'd get a reply back. And it was really just the grind and hustling. And I didn't mean to get into TV. It just was one of the avenues I was really going after too. And just,
wow.
Few people said yes.
You know what's interesting about what you said is that, and I've heard this before, but it's a very interesting distinction, is that your emails to them were personal. You watched an episode of something they did. You wrote to them about that episode. You acknowledged them for their work on that episode, how you loved it. And then you did the ask saying, and here's a link to some of my stuff. And people responded. It's quite interesting than when you're just,
And it was a natural ask.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a salesy thing. It was like, let me give you value and tell you how much I love what you do. And by the way, I happen to be a writer too. If this is something that you like,
absolutely
check it out. And that's amazing. And that's a lesson that we need to hopefully all the listeners that are listening to this episode right now are taking notes for this.
Yeah, because I think that's a really, really important distinction. And you have the results, Jeffrey, in your own life with this story and with many hundreds of others that you can back that up with. And I just wanted to stop and acknowledge you for that, because I think that is, many people, or maybe even you, may just overlook that and think, well, that's just the natural way to be. But we find so many times people, don't think that way. It's like all day long, it's pitch, 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 pitch. Me, gimme, and people don't get the subtle nuance nor the power of the methodology that you took.
Well, I think that also, thanks for saying that. I think part of that honestly was a maturity thing and coming into the game with some life experience under my belt. And also, again, I point back to this church thing, this environment of so many things I learned. This is not your typical, like your grandma's church. So you have to get that out of your head. This is like a serious corporation dealing at the very highest level and really basically saying, like, listen, we have 4 hours, 4 services a weekend, sometimes 10, 15, 13, 15,000 people are coming. Well, you have to make those 4 hours, those 4 services really count. And they really matter. And what you say when you say you're going to do something really matters, because you're leading, 300 plus people in your department. Wow. When you say you're going to meet the deadline for this budget, it matters that what you say, that you actually do it.
Right.
And I think for all of us, especially us creative types, you've got to get yourself into some kind of situation where you learn how to be accountable. Because I run into people, it doesn't matter how old they are, they could be way older or younger, where they haven't been in that, and then they're like super flaky and you can count on them. And I'm telling you, that kind of stuff will ruin your career. And you've got to be able to learn to be accountable. You can't just feel everything out in life. You actually your word has to mean something. And I learned a lot of heavy lessons. I remember at the church, one of these churches I was at, John Wooden, when he was alive, he would occasionally he would do like the welcome. And that's where it's like, hey, welcome to our church today. If you're a visitor, blah, 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 this whole thing. I'm John. I'm really glad you're here. And this is my church home too. Well, I remember having to say to him, because I was over everything that happened outside the pastor's message, every minute of every single thing, what it smelled like, what it sounded like, how people came across. I'd have to go to John Wooden and be like, John, you got to cut like 45 seconds off that welcome, because, 4,000 kids are going to get out of their like Sunday school class and it's going to be a massive traffic jam. We've got to cut off 10 minutes, and part of saving that 10 minutes is your 45 seconds. And thinking to myself, talking to John Wooden, who I never would normally ever be in the same room with, here I am speaking into what we need him to change or do. It's just that kind of stuff taught me so much. It put me in leadership positions that it was kind of mind-boggling. And I have so many experiences like that, where they would ask me to guest lead music at like a NFL, Bible study for like, all-star Super Bowl players. I mean, crazy stuff, like being in circles that normally I never would have, that taught me at a younger age how to really like get my crap together,
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. That's carried you, those lessons have carried throughout your life. And I think they're so important, and it's something that, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, when I got into the business, I was 18, 19 years old as an intern, and it was, you learn at a very early age when you watch, more seasoned, mature people, how you pick up on the cues, and it's so important. It's learning, it's listening to what isn't said, and hearing what isn't spoken. It's so important. And I'm glad you brought that up, because those things, they're not only things that I think help you professionally or to achieve results, but they also help you in life, as you've just articulated.
Yeah, that's totally true. One other thing I'll just say is, I think it's important for all of us, when you're pursuing a circle or a relationship or a goal that you haven't yet attained, that the people that are, let's call them gatekeepers of that door you really want in, you have to really remember that they don't they don't realize that they need you. So when you have these meetings and these conversations or these emails, just realize they don't need you. So you need them. So the best way to approach that relationship is, like you had mentioned earlier, you should be super grateful for what they do. Everyone loves to be complimented. I don't care who they are, what level they're at. You know, it's like the pretty girl not being asked to prom. Everybody thinks she's going to prom, so they wouldn't dare ask her. It's the same kind of concept. Everyone is open to you being authentically complimentary to what they do because everyone wants to matter, you know. But if you can remember that you need them, then it's going to lead you in how you need to behave instead of, you know, I receive emails all the time from artists that want me to like either produce them or manage them. And they're like, next biggest thing on planet Earth, I'm da-da-da. It's just like, I always delete those right away because they're stupid.
Exactly, because it gives you an indication of something that, you know, goes really beyond talent.
Yes. And they obviously don't have an accurate view of who they are. There are those a few people, one in a zillion, like a Kanye, who think they are the best and they actually are. But most people don't come from that point, you know.
Let me ask you, Jeffrey, too, before we get to the next question that I had, just as another aside, when you made that transition from the church going into that you had to like start hustling and grinding on your own, did you just go cold turkey? It was like from one week to the next, you left that gig and then you were like, That's it, I got to jump on this?
Yep, it was cold turkey. It was January 6th, 2006. And I remember I told the kids, and one of my kids is like, are we going to be poor now? You know, I remember them saying that. And the other ones were like, okay, Daddy, you know, they were really young at the time. And I just said, I'm going to make this happen. And
I mean, it must have been a tremendous amount of pressure that you put you under.
It was huge. And it didn't always go good. Just, you know, I have some funny, you know, I don't have to get into it. We could if you want, but I have some interesting stories of valleys that were really hard and painful too, that make the hilltops really, really enjoyable. You know, just there was times that I will get it unless you want to later, I guess, but or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, there was at one point, you know, I'll give you one example though. I did in 2006. We had a house in Chino, California, and I refied my house. And I took $202,000 out. So it wasn't like I just said, okay, I have no money in the bank. So I had $202,000 that I took out of my house. Of course, that means that your mortgage goes up too, but still, I had $202,000 access, and I'm like, we're going to go for it. And I remember going for it with my kids in particular, who are a band. I wasn't going to spare any expense. We were going to have the best people in the world mix it. We were going to buy the best amps. We were going to find their sound and spare no expense because we had to compete. We weren't competing with other indie artists. We were competing with Coldplay and Katy Perry. You're competing with everybody.
Right.
So that lasted till about 2000. That was 2006. That money lasted till about 2009. And I was still doing lots of indie records. So then I had to it was month to month making money from that. And then with the housing crisis that sort of started in 7-8, it really got bad for me producing indie records. Like 2009, 2010, it got really bad. So at one point, I was down to like $267. I remember that amount. And remember, I had 3 kids in private school, a mortgage, a car. I lived in Toluca Lake, and I didn't use credit cards. It's also a side note. I got my first credit card 2 years ago because I always believed I'm not going to buy something unless I can purchase it outright.
Right.
I don't want to get in debt. So I had $267 to my name, no credit cards. I don't borrow money. That's not who I am. And I had to make crap happen. And I did. I had to do some side work for a minute, and it was really fun.
Yeah, I just asked because it's a tremendous leap of faith that you had to take. I mean, again, being married at such a young age, having young children, your wife. I mean, it must have, been super intense.
It was. It's not easy to live here, and it's very expensive, and it just got crazy. I'll just give you one more side thing to that because I think it's important that you have to keep going. And sometimes you have to also change up where the dollar comes from to give you perspective on what your dream is. So when you're producing indie records, one thing you find is, I was making a great living for a while, and but I really felt like I could have got stuck into that world. Now, there was a lot of guys making indie records. Almost every producer I know was on the side without telling anybody doing these indie records where, let's say, a rich soccer mom, or somebody who maybe isn't amazing will pay you a good amount of money to do a record for them or a demo or whatever. You have to take it. as you're paying the bills for your kids. But I really felt like that was a world that I did not want to get stuck in, because it didn't feel very exciting. And so when everything really died down in 2009, 2010, somewhere in there, where I had that $267, and all that pressure, I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to figure this out. So I really went left of center, because again, I'm a father. I have to provide for kids and a wife, and no matter what, I'm going to take care of them. So I basically took pictures of all the gear that I had in my studio. And one thing that I came from the church world, also a side skill that I had, was I was the guy also in charge of, like, if we needed a new sound system for the whole building, or we were building a new building, and I was the guy that decided all that stuff. So vendors loved me. So I could always get stuff at just really great prices. Yeah. And I always sold stuff at a profit. So long story short, I'll just give you the real humanity side of grinding. When I had $267, and not a lot of people know this, I'm like, I'm going to sell my stuff, and I'm going to get us through a few months. So I basically took pictures of all my studio gear, took like 10 different pictures so it looked like I had more studio gear than I had, and basically listed these studio packages, which nobody was doing, on eBay. And I studied eBay for 2 seconds. This is so funny, because it completely led me to a better path, and I'll explain why. But I took pictures of all these studio packages, and I was like, nobody's selling a full recording studio package where you can just get it all. Everything is together, a computer with all the plugins that people could authorize and buy, all their headphones, a mic, speakers. Like, you can make a record the day you got this package. And you realize I'm broker than broke at this time. I couldn't get any other side gigs. I was making no money. I couldn't even get hired at freaking Papa John's as a delivery driver like I did in high school. It's just some reason I'm very religious too. So I believe God was like, just hold on. I'm going to take you somewhere. So I basically took a picture of my studio package and took 10 different pictures, so it looked like I had 10 packages, and I knew that I could duplicate this package. They had a computer guy, I had, all this gear I could buy. In a day's notice, I could make this identical package. I put these 10 packages up, then I said, screw it. I took more pictures. I put 30 packages up, and I made $100,000 on eBay that month.
Oh my God.
Now out of that, I made like 30, there's fees and stuff. So immediately eBay is like, who are you? We don't know you. They shut my account down. I'm like, no, I'm a real guy. Here's my address. I came from the church world. I put these studio packages together. I have a whole team that can blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they let me back up, and I'm not kidding. For 2 years, I completely made more money than I ever made selling these studio packages on eBay. And the reason I tell you this story is because that thing in the back of my mind saying I can't get stuck in doing indie records for people that 99% will never make it, and I don't want to be known as the indie record guy. I could basically just keep doing co-writes and sending these still 100 emails out a day.
Yeah.
Totally now funding my entire lifestyle. All the pressure is off, and it completely changed. That's really when I started to get cuts. So from 2009-ish, 10-ish, whatever, till like 2013, I was what's called the Pro Tools Guy 310 on eBay. And I was starting to get cuts on other artists all over the world. So it's a funny thing that way to get there. But I'm grateful that I didn't have to keep doing those indie records and feel stuck.
Right. And it goes to show where there's a will, there's a way. And you've definitely found a way, and your faith kind of guided you in that path.
Yeah, it was cool. And it's just a good reminder that sometimes not making a living from the exact thing that you're trying to do, sometimes it gives you a new perspective to think outside the bubble and kind of position yourself how you want it to go more. So I'm grateful that it all happened,
That's an amazing story,
Yeah.
Not only of faith, but of ingenuity and of, taking a simple thing, which is what you were going to do. You were going to sell the studio gear. That was your original intention. And then to see the vision of, well, wait a minute, why can't I just do this again and again and again? I mean, you knew all the pieces of gear. I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful story. That's really, really inspiring. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, man.
I want to talk to you about Echosmith. You also manage the band, and can you tell us about them?
I can. Boy, do I love that band. I said earlier, I alluded to it. They're my 4 kids, and now 3 of the 4 members are in the band. One quit to produce records and write songs himself. But Echosmith, they've had a lot of different names, but these are some great musicians and songwriters and singers that grew up in this environment of studio musicians and a musical household since they were born. And so you had guys like Kenny Aronoff and Greg Bissonette and Matt Bissonette and John Patitucci and all these different kinds of people, Chris Chaney, Mike Elizondo, all these people coming over to the house, making records, all these co-writers coming over. They were around it since they were tiny. And because, again, early on, we wanted to have this certain kind of family that we were intentional with, I never was the kind of father was like, don't come in the studio when I'm in here. You are forbidden. Don't you dare. But I'm like, no, I love the interruptions. My studio's always going to be at home because I don't believe in making someone else rich and paying their mortgage. I want to invest in myself. So I want to have my studio at home. So I loved the interruptions. So they were in the house and in the studio all the time. And nothing was cuter. Nothing also broke the ice for an artist that maybe, wanted to feel safe or, hadn't met me yet and was, let's say, 16 years old. Nothing made her feel more at home than seeing a bunch of kids at the house who were also artists and musicians who made her feel welcome, and they would go get ice cream together. And it was just a great environment. So they were around it their entire life. And they were first called Ready, Set, Go. And when I quit in 2006, they were really, really young. Sydney was like 8, I think. Graham, the drummer, was like 6 or 5 or something. Noah, the bass player, was 9, and Jamie, the guitar player, was 11 or something. 11, 12. And the intention wasn't to have them be a band at first. So what happened was we always knew Sydney would be an artist. We were sure of that because she was, singing at these huge churches. My kids were playing in the bands. They were in the studio. They were writing songs. But what happened was someone at the tail end of my church profession, somebody had a daughter die. She was 18, and she came to me. She's like, Jeffrey, would you help me put together some kind of musical group for the end of this walk run, a benefit for my daughter who died of leukemia, just to raise money and also, just to have a nice ending to the whole run and bring some heart, I'm like, sure. So I had this other little side business I won't get too deep into called the Lesson House that I started too. That was also a fun side gig. And the stars of the Lesson House, these were kids, hundreds and hundreds of kids taking lessons, in group lessons and private. The stars of those were my kids. So I told my kids, I'm like, why don't you guys learn some covers and why don't you play together and do this thing? They're not going to pay you. And I just want to help this lady out. So you got to do it for free and I'll give you pizza or something. They're like, okay, cool. So they're learning these covers. I was helping them. They're doing like that 311 song, da-da-na-na-na is your energy, whatever that song is. It's like a Sublime cover. I don't know, whatever it is. And then they learned a Sublime, then they learned a Rihanna song, and they learned like a Rage Against the Machine and some weird time signature. So anyway, they went and played this walk run. And again, I'm not thinking at all they should be a band. I'm thinking the boys will be session musicians, Sydney will be the artist. So they do this walk run, and I'm watching them play, and I'm seeing people react, and I'm also studying and watching how they're reacting to each other musically and the parts that they're playing and the way they're reacting. I was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? We have to do this. They need to be a band. And it like someone slapped me in the face almost, it like woke me up out of a dream, and I literally saw it kind of all before it all happened. So I talked to the band. I said, why don't you guys, I want to tell you what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing and what I think could happen. And they're like, let's do it. We love this. And they loved playing together. That was the main thing. I wanted to make sure they loved it. So in 2006, that's when we really started going for it. And then, as I quit and I had that little bit of money from the refi, we were figuring out their sound. I was producing their records, writing songs with them, having the best people mix them. And then we recorded one song called iPod, and I only knew like 4 people. And again, I had this list from you, Ritch, that was life-changing. That I'm telling you, as much as all these other things are a massive piece of the puzzle, this list is equally as important as anything else I've mentioned, because I had to have the access. I had to have it.
Wow, that's fantastic.
I'm telling you, you can't underplay it. This is huge. So with this list, I'm now, as part of my 100 emails a week, now for 25 of them, I am sharing this song called iPod. Now, at the time, the iPod came out, right? So the iPod's like the hottest, most innovative thing on planet Earth. And immediately, this was in January, I now think 2007, I think it's that year. I send it out, and immediately people start flying to our house. So the two guys that produced Hannah Montana, that TV show, came over. People from Irving Azoff came over. Atlantic Records came over. Jason Flom came out. I remember all these meetings like it was yesterday. And for one reason or another, this super hyper-focused kind of feeding frenzy, it either the deal was just weird or wasn't right, or they didn't come through. Something about it. We went out to eat multiple times celebrating that the band's getting signed.
Really? Okay.
Well, we were out to eat celebrating. Thank you, God. This is so cool. And it didn't happen. So then that feeding frenzy died down. That was January through, let's call the feeding frenzy through March, April, somewhere of that year. And then it died down, but the whole thing was we're not going to stop writing. We're not going to stop working. And we're not going to stop playing gigs. So I had the band. I'm like, I just need you to play in front of people. So I had them playing 3rd Street Promenade, and they were just raking in the money at 3rd Street because they just looked so cool. I mean, they were cute. They're real little, but they were so good. So they're just they'd go to an hour or two and they'd make $200, $300, $400 in cash. So they were like, this is fun. So we would always go out to eat after, and they would do 3rd Street Promenade nonstop. We did it for, the whole summer, every day except Sundays. And
they did every day. They performed at 3rd Street
every day.
Wow.
And
okay.
Yeah, putting the hat out or whatever to get dollars, and we'd keep them safe. And you have to also figure out a way to power it. Without power, you have to convert a battery into some weird portable thing. Anyway. And then I would I'd sit back and evaluate their show and say, okay, this song is cool, but it's not really reacting. I was also really in tune on what happens to a song in front of real human beings. It's one thing to be in the studio, but how do people react? So that was another thing the church world really taught me, and having to write a song every week. I'd either sing it or have one of these singers sing it. I could see in real time if this moved people, and you'd also get letters from people, and you'd see what worked and what didn't. So I was watching these songs at 3rd Street at whatever gig we could get, if they moved people or not. So I was always tweaking and producing live too. So we would just kept going to the studio and writing songs, sending them out. And then 8 months later, a year later, then there was another feeding frenzy. And everyone kept saying, oh, you need a TV show. You need, these kids are young. Everybody has a TV show, Hannah Montana, all that stuff, the Jonas Brothers, all that. So we were also having all these TV meetings, and we had another feeding frenzy. Same kind of thing happened where it wasn't quite right, and either the vision for them by somebody was weird. I was really, really honed in on the fact that I did not want them to make the kind of music that was totally for their age. So, when they're 8, 9, 10, 11, now they're getting older, now they're 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, that kind of thing. I didn't want them to make the kind of music that was for kids. And the reason why is because I was really studying, and I think it helped because I was, a grown adult here again. I was watching how, when a girl is starting to mature in every way you could think of, okay? She's getting older, she had puberty, she wants to be seen older and pretty and all that kind of stuff. The thing that mostly girls do, guys do it too, but the thing that they do is once they want you to start seeing them as older, they basically throw away every single thing in their life that makes you think that they're a kid anymore. You'll hear out of a teenager's mouth, I'm not a kid, I'm not a baby, I'm not right. You hear that a million times as a parent. So I'm like, let's not be part of that throwaway pile when that transition happens in every single young person's life. Let's not make the kind of music or do the kind of posters that you get thrown away. So in all these feeding frenzies, we were deciding not to make the kind of music that was too young. So that was also a reason for a lot of these deals that we just wouldn't take. We were sure that we didn't want to sign to Disney or something like that because we felt like they would young them up too much. Yeah. And I have all the respect in the world for Disney, so I'm just saying at the time, it didn't seem like the right move. So then it all went away again, and it died again. And then in 2012 or 2011, still subscribing this entire time from 2006 to 2011 faithfully to your subscription service with all this access, still sending out 100 emails a day consistently. I'm getting cuts here and there. Things are starting to happen. An old friend of mine that used to play bass for me at one of these churches was Mike Elizondo. And Mike Elizondo's career exploded. And it's continued to explode. He's really talented, and kudos to him. But Mike Elizondo got hired by Rob Cavallo. Of course, Rob's a legend. I didn't even know him at the time. Got hired by Rob Cavallo to be a staff producer, VP of A&R. And as soon as he got hired, I told my wife, I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but I know for a fact that he got hired there I know it's a God thing. I know he got hired there to sign the band.
Wow.
And my wife's like, really, you think so? I go, yes. And I'm a total faith guy. So I've had hundreds of these kinds of stories where it's like, I'm going for something and I have this feeling, and a lot of times it turns out it's that.
Yeah.
So Mike gets hired, and let me see. I'm in front of my computer, and I'm just for fun. I'm going to see if I can even find the original email just for fun. But basically, Mike gets hired at Warner Brothers Records. And I basically say to Mike, it's Jeffery David. How the heck are you? I don't do the church thing anymore. I hope you're amazing. I produce records. I write songs. I'm really excited about all I'm doing, but I'm mostly excited about this band I've been developing at the time called Ready, Set, Go. Let's just call them Echosmith. And Mike's like, oh my gosh, so great to hear from you. I'm in the middle of producing a Regina Spektor record. Send me a link. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I don't want to hold you up, but I'd love to hear it. So a week goes by, and then the next Friday, I'm like, I'm also, there's another key thing that I do. I don't just send 100 emails out and never follow up again. I have like a whole system of like follow up, you know what I mean? So you don't want to just send someone a cold email and never try again. You also don't want to be a pest. So you got to be careful. So I'm like part of a fine balance, but because Mike has engaged me back, this is now, we're having a dialogue, and Mike used to, play bass for me. So it's like, it isn't like there's no relationship. We had a good relationship back then. So I'm going to cultivate it. So a week later, Mike, it's Jeffery again. If you had a chance to check it out, some other people are circling. That's another point to make, that you want to be careful, but you also want to create, when you're going after something and you want something from someone, you also want to let them know that they don't have forever, that there's
a sense of urgency. Yeah.
Yes. You have to create that sense of urgency to let them know that other people are interested too. So at the time, a guy named Chris Anakute was getting interested. And I remember we started a conversation with Jason Flom, who was real hot on a young producer that no one really knew, called Dr. Luke, that was starting to blow up. So there was people getting really serious. A guy named Justin Shukat, or not Shukat. He had Sure-Tone Records. Do you remember his name, Ritch?
Jordan Shear. Jordan
Jordan
Shear, I think. Yeah.
So his team was circling. Atlantic was circling. So anyway, a week went by, and I said, Mike, if you had a chance to listen to it. And again, I had this whole feeling that Mike was supposed to sign the band. And Mike's like, I haven't yet. Don't let me hold you up, but give me another week. So basically, that happened 2 more times. So the 4th week, and I can't find the email. I wish I could. I'd read it word for word. But the 4th week, I basically said, Mike, this is your last chance. Universal stoked, and someone else is. P.S. These are my 4 kids. I never lead off with these are my kids. I just don't. And I think it positions me better, and it's just served me well not to. So an hour later, Mike calls me, laughing on the phone, saying, wait a minute. I love this. Wait, what? Are you kidding? These are your 4 kids? I'm like, yes. He's like, oh my gosh, I love this. He goes, I need to see you on Monday. I'm going to live with this stuff for the weekend. I'm going to live with it. Can you please come to my studio on Monday? So I told my wife, I'm like, okay, this is promising. I told the kids, and I had to also be careful because we've been out to multiple dinners celebrating they're going to get signed lots of times, and it hadn't happened. So I have to be careful of like how I phrase stuff, because I don't want them to get let down and be already jaded and as young people, they haven't even got started yet. So I basically say, hey, listen, I've been sending this to my old friend Mike. Now he seems really excited. We don't know. I think God's doing something here, but let's just keep praying about it, and let's just keep doing what we do. And so we go meet with Mike on Monday, and Mike is just like freaking out now by this time. And this is another little faith note, okay? So every single night since 2006, me and the family, we would all end the night in a little circle prayer saying, God, thanks for today. Thanks for all you're doing. And we just pray that whoever we sign to, whatever door we're supposed to go through, that you would let them obsess and see and hear what we see, and that they would get it, but that they'd actually obsess about it. Amen. Good night, guys. Love you. High five. Everybody go to bed. We prayed that every night. So just so you know, that Friday that Mike called me to that Monday, the first thing out of Mike's mouth on that Monday was like, Jeffrey, I just have to tell you, I'm completely obsessed. There's that word. And he's like, dude, I cannot tell. I love this stuff. I purposely haven't signed anything yet. I love it. He goes, I shared it with Rob. Rob's totally obsessed too. Use that word again. And so he's like, I'm going to have a meeting with the A&R tomorrow. I'm going to call you first thing. So Tuesday he calls. He's like, dude, the building is in love with the band. They're obsessing to, he said it again, I'm not joking. He's like, they're obsessing to, can you bring the band here at 1:00 to meet with Rob? He goes, we're going to sign the band. So I go get the kids out of Spanish class, two of them. Jamie was homeschooled at the time, my oldest, and Graham, I don't know, he's in elementary school or something. So I go get all the kids. I go, we're going to Warner. I have a great feeling about this. We're walking through the building, and everybody in the building's like, they're coming out of their offices, giving the kids high fives. Like, oh, I saw this video of yours on YouTube. I loved it. Or I love when you kind of fell asleep, Graham, on that one cover. Or Jamie, I loved your guitar playing, and blah, blah, blah. So the building was already like stoked. And so we go meet with Rob Cavallo, who Rob's like a hero of every producer. Such a wonderful person. He's a dear friend of mine now. I didn't know him then. We meet with Rob for 3 hours. And these meetings, it's also super important to read the room. This is a skill that you got to learn as anything, as a producer, songwriter, manager. So I'm reading the room like, first of all, the band has got to lead this walk into the building. And I also had a co-manager at the time named Kimberly Noller. She's no longer with us, but she was great. She'd worked at Warner. She's been around forever. She was really super helpful and educational and all this kind of stuff. So read the room, let the band lead, let the band cast vision of who they are and what they're about. And Rob is interacting. The band also played in the room. Noah played upright. They played a couple of their songs, and Rob's like, he goes, I just finished producing the Paramore record. He's like, I just feel like you guys could do that and even more. Would you guys sign to Warner Brothers? We'd be honored to have you. And all of us are like, yes. So we signed at Warner Records with a handshake that day. We got the long form, which is unheard of in like a week. And we signed right before Christmas. And that was 2011. And then the hard work really began. But yeah, that was how they got signed.
But what a Christmas present to have after all that work.
Yeah. And you knew intuitively that they belonged on Warner's with Mike.
Yeah, Mike is he's so great. It was really interesting to catch up with Mike again. Like I'm sure you guys have had this in your life, but to catch up with someone you haven't seen them from where they were at such a different place to where they are is really fun. And my friend Mike, who needed $75 so desperately, when he was in college, like all of us did, to see him and to catch him up, and he's just, super successful and very well off. It was a real joy, and he was wonderful for the project.
Hey, Insiders, we hope that you're enjoying our featured interview. Before we dive back in, a word from our sponsor. So, hey, Ritch, tell me a little bit about the Music Business Registry.
Well, what we are, Music Business Registry is the leading contact directory. We publish all of the most current, accurate, and up-to-date contact information for the music industry. We do directories for A&R. We do directories for music publishers. We do directories for film and television music. We do directories of artist managers, and we do directories of music attorneys. And we also sell other publications too, like the Indie Bible Series, the YouTube Bible Series, the Indie Spotify Bible Series, and other things as well. That's what we're about.
So if I wanted to find out, let's say, the music supervisor for American Horror Story, I can kind of go into the Film and TV monthly and find the information that I need there?
Well, we don't list specific shows. What we do list is if you know who the music supervisor is, and you can find that out on IMDb, then you can find their contact information. And we have that in our Film and Television Music Monthly. Absolutely, yes.
That's great. And I hear that we have a discount right now. If you go to musicregistry.com and use coupon code MUBUTV10 at checkout, you'll receive 10% off your first order.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, we offer that to all of the MUBUTV insiders.
So insiders, check out musicregistry.com and use MUBUTV10 as your coupon code.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Really a lot of great
there's a lot of lessons and takeaways from this that these listeners is like so far this has got to be one of my favorite interviews we've done because it's got so many great lessons and just getting back again to your gut and your faith and belief in something and instinctively feeling like that was the right person and he was the guy for the band. So Amazing. Let me ask you, Jeffrey, when you got involved with Echosmith, did you initially see your role as a co-songwriter, producer, or as their manager, or all three?
Well, for me, it was a natural thing to do all three because I was already working with them in the studio so much and producing everything. And then I was the one going to make stuff happen, At first, I was really convinced I wanted a co-manager situation. But as I got deeper into it, because I was making the final decision on so much and I was hustling to find stuff, it just sort of worked with the skill set. And,
right.
Because that church experience of like having to manage budgets and having to make tough calls and hire and fire people and be accountable. It's all those, and be a parent. I mean, all those things is just like, they're all related to being a manager. That's also, side note, I would encourage so many people to hire moms and stuff too, because when you really get into the nitty gritty of what a mom does, it's just like solving, massive problems 20 times a day and managing a family and a budget and time scheduling and all that stuff. They're brilliant. So why can't they do that for your company? So as a parent, you learn all that stuff too. But mostly I was always a partner with the band saying, how are you feeling about how I'm doing? What, I wanted to be a good partner. And a huge thing was to not mix the roles. That's the secret sauce to this entire thing, is that you cannot mix the roles. And parents that don't work with their kids anymore. And there's a lot of people that aren't involved in their kids' career anymore. And you have to, for me personally, I say on a regular basis, hey, manager hat on now, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Right. If it's a band meeting, obviously I'm being the manager. If I'm in the studio, I never put the dad hat on. Never. And
interesting.
We're equals. Their opinion counts. And the only time I insert the dad hat is when it's really needed. When you see that your kid is exhausted and we're on Warped Tour 2 times and it's 105 degrees and they're doing 40 press things a day, including a concert and then a meet and greet and then whatever. Then you got to be like, hey, I just want you to know I love you and I'm here for you and I know this is hard and why don't we just go chill in the back and let's just play cards? Or, those are times that a manager can't do that because you have to be careful. You can't, give your artist a big bear hug when they're crying, I mean, I guess you could, but as a father, you sure can. You can love your kids and be like, hey, I want you to know I'd take a bullet for you. And are you okay? Are you getting enough rest? That kind of stuff. So when it works.
What better person to be there than with his father,
Yeah.
So it's what a incredible.
If you can make it work and you're healthy, then for us, it's the best situation. It may not be for other people, but it's just the kind of family we have.
And as a follow-up, Jeffrey, as an artist myself who is involved on the management side of my career, I'm curious how you balance the creative and business aspects working with Echosmith. I mean, obviously you touched on that now, but how do you maintain that?
Like just for their career or mine too, or what do you mean?
I guess, I guess everything. Yeah. How do you keep all those roles separated? I'm just curious,
Well, it's certainly not easy, and it's kind of about time management. But
yeah,
when you make good money and then you have some hits under your belt and some wins and stuff, I think that you can sort of look at things from 10,000 feet above and start picking the more passion projects and the stuff that's more important.
Right.
Like for instance, now I don't do a co-write every single day, and I don't send out 100 emails every day. I still send out probably 50 though, 30 to 50. I still do that.
Right.
And it's still a lot of people I don't know that still don't know me or have heard about stuff.
So you're constantly increasing your network.
I'm still increasing my network. And for me, the hunt of the new person is still just as exciting. And LinkedIn has been really cool that way too. I ignored LinkedIn for a long time and their emails felt spammy to me. But then I look at it and you have these, 6 degrees of separation where so many people are connected. Boy, that's just been really cool. And I got another batch of contacts from Ritch just last week. So I'm still hunting.
Great. And for everybody, we're going to include that in the show notes. Obviously, Music Business Registry is one of our main sponsors here. And, for everybody who's been wondering what Jeffrey keeps referring to the MB list and everything, we'll have that in the show notes.
I want to go back for a minute, Jeffrey, because you touched on something when you spoke about Echosmith and the Warped Tour. The Warped Tour, as I understand it, was really helpful to Echosmith in really building their fan base. How did they get that opportunity for that tour?
Well, that was now I started to involve a team. So as soon as you get signed, in most cases, you get to basically have kind of the pick of the litter of, you don't always get the top exact agent you want, but basically you can assemble your team because now you actually have a business. So now you can have a business manager, you can have an agent, you can have, someone chasing brand deals with you. So we basically, at the time, we were signed to CAA with a friend of mine, J-Bo, who's really cool.
Oh, and, yeah, I know J-Bo.
Yeah, so at the time we were with CAA and J-Bo. And J-Bo, he's a hustler too, going for it. We were with him for a time, and the first one, I'm pretty sure he got our first one. And then we decided to leave CAA. We just wanted a bit more. We wanted to grind a little more. We wanted an agent that could get us more college shows, and we didn't want to be positioned so pop, and which we still don't want to totally be positioned too pop. It's still a constant struggle, but we ended up switching to Paradigm because for us, Paradigm had all the coolest bands ever. They had Coldplay, they have Lumineers, they have all kinds, Ed Sheeran, they have all kinds of cool people that are bandish, And we switched with them, and then they just started getting us a million things. Now, of course, it didn't hurt that we started to have a bubbling up hit in 2013 and 14 that started slow and exploded all over planet Earth, which is Cool Kids. That helped us get a zillion things. But, we were getting tours after tour and going to Europe. We went to Europe 7 times in like 11 months. I mean, the phone was just going crazy, the nonstop ringing.
Jeffrey, what do you feel are the most important elements in artist management?
That's a good question. For me personally, my style of management, if I had to nail anything that makes my band the happiest, is me just going to get stuff. I know that sounds so basic, but just going to get something for my band every single day and going to get something significant weekly and getting something, if I can, big monthly, a consistent reaching out and hustling and grinding of those emails and phone calls every day. Yeah. It makes my band really happy. So it's also calculating where you want to be. That's really important. The vision cast. Those 2 things for me is getting stuff from my band, if I had to break it down, and vision casting. And those 2 things makes my band really, really, really happy. And sometimes as a manager, you have to believe even when the band's too tired to believe, or maybe they forgot. You have to carry the vision. Right. When the team is forgotten, you have to be the quarterback. And casting vision, let me just touch on that because that is so crucial. And that's something I learned in the church world too. So we used to always go to these conferences when I was on the church staff. And they were these conferences at a place called Willow Creek. And they would have the president of Southwest Airlines. They'd have Bono. They had one-time President Clinton. They'd have massive world leaders. They even had Mother Teresa one year, I think. I mean, just you'd go to these conferences and hear people that were just accomplishing such amazing things. And again and again and again, they would always say, vision leaks. You have to cast vision. And you don't do it once, you do it all the time. And here's a good example of it. So let's say the band has a mission statement, like for Echosmith, is to spread hope and love to the whole world through music. Okay, that's their mission statement. So help your band identify what the mission statement is. And then basically remind your band in the nitty-gritty of what the mission statement is. So, for example, when one of the times we went to Germany, we went to Hamburg, Germany, so many times, in Berlin, but mostly Hamburg, because that's where all the music business is based. So we're going to Hamburg, and when you go to Hamburg, the thing about the German people, of all the different places we've done promo, Germans are really good with time management. So if you have 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. marked for promo, they're literally starting at 8 and they're going to use every freaking minute of that time to grind it out and utilize that you're in the market. So they're going to give you a sheet of what you got to do. And on that list, I'm telling you, there's a minimum of 50 to 70 things. Wow. Now, a lot of managers, I told this to Ritch the other day, a lot of managers would say to the guys dude, we got a gnarly day. You got to tough it out. I know you're tired, but 1 million people want your spot and you have to grind. We're going to go do this today. Let's go. That's how most managers, a lot of managers would say it. Well, that isn't what I would say. Here's what I mean by casting vision. You guys remember how we prayed every single night and just said, God, let somebody see what we see. Let somebody care. Let somebody obsess. And we want to spread hope and love around the whole world. Today we're in Berlin. Guys, we're doing exactly what we set out to do. And I have a list that is pretty long. But when we're done with tonight, we're going to eat some amazing German food, and you're going to be able to share your story with when this is all spread out through TV and radio and all the press, your story will be heard by over 5 million people. And me and Mom are here. We love you guys. We got this. You need anything, you need a break, we are right there. Let's go get them. High five. All of a sudden, by casting vision in the nitty gritty, you're bringing purpose to all the to-do lists, which is what most artists get burned out by. But my artists don't.
Right.
Because I'm casting vision, bringing purpose to it all. So the side note of casting vision and bringing purpose, then you get people that are super grateful. Instead of like, oh crap, I got to do a phoner for Italy. They're like, even if they start that way and they're like, oh, I'm so tired, I hate doing these phoners. What you say again, that's your moment, not to school and be, Joe Parent dorky guy, but to basically say, hey, remember, like, we still care that hope is spread around the whole world through our music. And today, someone in Italy wants to talk to us and hear our story. Go get them, Sydney. And then she's like, you're right. Thanks, Dad. You're right. So you got to do it all the time.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It is huge. And, I want to sort of tie this in with something that you had mentioned before, to go back to, because I think it's important to ask you about it, which is that you said, when you get signed, you have to start building the team. And I was wondering, when you're working with a band like Echosmith and things are starting to happen, can you talk to us about the importance of building a team, or, in an artist's career? I think that's a very important point that you mentioned. And if you could speak to that, it would be great.
Well, yeah, building the right team is the most important. And building the wrong team is equally as painful. And we've all been there with having to move team members in and out. And again, my experience from the church world of hiring and firing and all that made having these tough conversations more doable. It's never easy. It's never fun, but I will not hesitate to have any of them. But finding the right team members who are going to work as hard as you is huge. Again, same thing with whoever I sign with as a publisher. I'm always asking myself, what are you going to do? What are you going to bring to the table? And I'm expecting you to go get stuff. My band's love language is deals and us getting them stuff so they can spread their message of hope and love to the whole world. And we can't do it if we don't all go get stuff. And so building the right team of people that are passionate, that have the same values, that understand, you have to cast vision with them like crazy, just as much as anybody or more to them too, to make sure that they're like, as they go hunt for you, that they're representing you in a way that is accurate. Like, for instance, Sydney's never going to dress, salacious, or, put it bluntly, she's never going to dress slutty or stuff, or sexual. So we have to make sure that when, like, our agency and they're going to pitch stuff for, like, our own clothing line of Hollister, like we did, or we did deals with State Farm and different things, that they clearly are saying, this is the kind of band that they are. This is the kind of band you're getting into business with. If you're expecting something else, we're not going to do the deal with you. So it's those guys, after I cast vision, they've got to go cast vision for us too. So, having the right team, leading the team is important. I'm a different kind of lead on my teams. Is basically like a lot of managers are like, I don't want anybody at the label having any conversations outside of me. Well, for me, I'm completely the opposite. I basically say to the label, it's like, this is my team. I trust my team. You can have any conversation that you want. Know that they're going to tell me and they're going to loop me in on it. But you can have any conversation that you want. Let's just go get stuff to the band and spread this message. Wow. And so my team members have been really stoked on that. We've had to change different people out at different times, which isn't fun. But there's times that you kind of need a fresh perspective, or someone who has a new energy to bring to the project, that's excited in a new way, or thinks differently or outside the box. I love that. And lastly, I'll say for how I lead my team is not only can you have full access to my team, but I don't care about being right. I'm not one of these managers that's always right. I could care less about being right. I just want to do the right thing.
No, and I agree.
So,
and it gets back to, like you're saying, changing out people from the team. You go back again to your church experience and pull from that. You said that you had to hire and fire people. So again, that's where that skill set comes in. So it was definitely your training ground, I think, for everything that you've done since. Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. I'm so grateful for it. It's never easy to fire somebody either, especially in the church world, where also some of these people are volunteers.
Right.
Firing a volunteer, like, they are so offended, it's like, but like, I'm doing this for free. It's so hard, but you have to move people around to different seats on the bus at times for the bus to get, to get where you need to go. And by the way, that goes for me too.
Yeah.
I give my team members permission to call me on the carpet if I'm getting off base. Same thing with the band. You feel like I'm not bringing stuff like I should, and I'm held accountable too.
Absolutely. Let me ask you, you operate two independent labels, one through Sony and the other one through Warner's. Can you tell us about them and why two separate labels?
Yeah, well, I have one through Sony Red, and I love those guys. I've been friends with a guy named Mike Kahn forever. Again, you know how I met him is because of Ritch's directory, and Mike Kahn was my first no for Echosmith, and I still bug him to this day. You are our very first no, and he feels guilty about it still. And Mike was at Windup at the time, and Mike is a very loved guy in the industry, and he's always said to me, he's like, I love you, Jeffrey, too. Do something. I'm at Sony Red now, and it's a different way of partnering with a record label. And so I finally said, I go, hey, I have an artist I'm going to sign. What do you think about it? And he's like, let's do it. So I signed a guy named Audion, and Audion's a really cool DJ, but not your typical DJ. He's he's a real credible guy. He's a hard worker. He's really smart. And I learned a lot from him too. And I signed him this year, and we put out 2 songs. One just hit top 10 in dance called Favorite Sound, and they've been on the dance track. It's really fun. I wrote that song too. And of course it's a feature with Echosmith because I am always about interjecting Echosmith into every single thing that I do because I really care about them the most. But I care about everybody else too. And then, and as we left Warner Brothers Records, which was interesting, we had such a wonderful run with Warner Brothers Records. But what we found, and this story is all too common, is the changing of the guard didn't help our situation much at all. So there's still a lot of amazing people there, and all the new people I'm sure are great. We don't really know them. But what we found was, you know, when Rob Cavallo wasn't there anymore, and then eventually Mike Elizondo wasn't there anymore. Then eventually the new president who we made a record with, Dan McCarroll, wasn't there anymore. Then Cameron Strang, who was the CEO, wasn't there. I mean, this kind of thing was happening again and again, from the publicists to marketing directors to check signers. We ended up feeling like we needed to go. So last October, we asked to be let go, and they asked us to think about it and to reconsider it, but we felt like it was the right thing. And so then we began label shopping last October. So again, I had in the back of my mind, I was having such a great experience with Sony Red situation, and their budget was healthy and they were going for it. I still wanted to make sure I had a conversation with everybody I could, again, leaning on Ritch's directory when I needed to for people I didn't know. I set up a bunch of meetings, and then we were going to sign, I won't say with who, and then Bert Goldstein, who our business manager is, he's like, you know, I have a really good friend, Kenny Weegley, over at Warner ADA. Those guys are really doing great stuff. Could you at least have a conversation with them? And I said, sure. And this was, I don't know, 8 months ago, 6 months, 6, 7, 8 months ago. I loved Kenny. And Kenny just so upbeat and so positive and thought a lot of the same way I think. He has a great track record. I used to be at Iron Def Jam and different things. I was so curious I didn't know him. I don't know why I didn't. But anyway, I hit it off with him. They made a really healthy offer and let us set up a label there. So in a funny way, we left the Warner system but went back in basically kind of on another floor in a way with a whole new team and a lot of the same people worldwide, you know, like Warner France and Warner Germany and different parts of the world. We have a lot of the same people we already won with. So yeah, so that's why I have 2 different places that we call label.
And do you manage the acts that you sign as well too, or is it just strictly Echosmith as the exclusive?
I'm just manage Echosmith, and I've tried managing others, and it just isn't quite a fit for what makes me want to get out of bed every day.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you bring up, Jeffrey, because, you know, in listening to you, I realize that it's also an issue of bandwidth, you know, in terms of your time, your energy, your commitment. You know, when you speak about the leadership aspect of working with an act, the leadership aspect of being the team leader with the agent and the accountant and the, you know, publicity and you know, the different label areas, it's, you know, I look at people who manage a lot of artists, and usually they have very large teams. You know, it's not just them, it's, you know, them and, you know, 5 or 6 other people within their organization, which is another thing of bandwidth. Then you have to sort of oversee, you know, that aspect. I mean, you think of like Scooter Braun, who has, you know, 30 people in that company, but it's, you know, he has to oversee that, and that's where his time and energy and bandwidth goes to. So it makes perfect sense that you would, you know, just as a label, be the label, rather than try to be other elements to it.
Yeah, it's true. And I think there's been times that I've toyed with the idea of expanding Cranberry Management. That's the name of my company, and Cranberry Records and Cranberry Publishing and all that. But I've toyed with the idea, and I think I will do that at some point. But I know like the Katy Perry manager guys, and really, their motto and a lot of people's motto is really you just need one.
Yeah.
You don't have to have 30 acts, but if you have one that like consistently is doing well, really you just need one. And I fast forward to the end of my life. What am I going to care about the most for me personally? There's other people that care about other different things, but for me, I'm going to be like, where's my family? I had a wonderful run. This was so fun. All we did was travel the world together. We had so much fun. We brought a lot of people a smile. We spread hope and love. And I love you guys. I'm out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not going to act like, let me see, my management roster again, or let me see my bank account, or let me, no one's going to do that. But
right.
When you start having a family, it's just like, if you could mix the worlds of like chasing a dream, involving your family, making a great living, I mean, what else is there? Give me a break. I'm so happy.
Yeah, no, it's interesting listening to you, because I remember a quote once, which I've never forgotten, and I forget who said it, but they said, no one ever in life has ever said on their deathbed, you know what I really regret? I regret not working more. They say, yeah. I regret not spending time with my family. I regret missing my, birth of my grandson, or I regret, missing the christening of my goddaughter, or whatever it is. But no one ever said, I regret not working more. So it's really a matter of, the priorities when you look at that. Jeffrey, throughout your career as a musician, a songwriter, a producer, and a manager, I'm wondering, are there any great books or films that have really resonated with you, professionally speaking, that you could recommend to our audience?
Well, that's a great question. One book that I've really always loved is by a guy named Tim Saunders, and it's called Love is the Killer App. And I love this book. I still will pick it up. And basically this book is kind of the way I already am, but it just sort of made me want to be it more. And basically his whole thing is, if you put people together and you introduce people and you connect people for no other reason other than they're going to be great for each other, and you enjoy connecting the pieces and you love people, he goes, that expands your network way more than introducing people and having a side convo like, hey man, you got to cut me in if you do a deal, or if you, all that kind of stuff. Because in the end, it really is fun to help people actualize their dream and help them get further along by introducing it to someone that can help them, whether that's you as a piece of the puzzle or someone else. So that book has been super cool. And I love all the movies where guys are just like hustling. I loved that Facebook movie, The Network, I think it was called.
Social Network, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I loved that movie. I love Dreamers. I love that. I always say, like, every great idea starts in someone's garage, Yeah. I follow loads of people, entrepreneur, Instagram, kind of one-off memes and different things, where it's like they'll show, Jeff Bezos in his garage with like the printed off thing that says Amazon, And I love people that are taking a chance and chasing a dream, because that's what I did. And I just love that stuff. I love all the hustler movies, people like the Wall Street movies and all those. I love it.
Yeah.
I love business too.
Yeah. Yeah. It shows. Definitely shows. Jeffrey, what advice would you offer for those who are pursuing a career as an artist manager?
Well, I would say find somebody. That you feel passionate about to get out of bed. And then I would also say, is that artist 1 in 10 million? And if you can find that artist, then it doesn't matter if you know people or you don't know people. Go get Ritch's subscription service. Go hustle. Go get stuff for that artist, and it just might work.
Okay. And Jeffrey, what advice can you offer for artists and bands who are pursuing a career professionally in music today?
Well, I would say write the best songs of your life. I would say be a student of culture. I would say it's really important to get mentors in your life and have people tell you the truth, because nothing's worse than being in your own bubble and not really knowing the truth. And I would say send out 100 emails every single day. I would subscribe to Ritch's service, and I would be really careful. The first thing you got to get right, though, is you got to have the best songs of your life.
Yeah.
That you got to put yourself in their position and say, when I hear this is going to make me get on the phone and call and find out who the heck this person is. And if you don't think that song that you're presenting is going to do that, then don't send it, and do not send those emails out yet. Great to hustle, but you have to be ready when you are hustling with the information that you're sharing. Because if you're wrong, the other side of it is you just basically ruined 100.
Burn that bridge.
Yeah, you've ruined 100 relationships. So it doesn't mean you're going to get it exactly right and perfect every time. But I would just say, make sure in your heart of hearts you're doing the best music you can, and then go chase. And music, there's an opinion. What's the old saying that everyone like a butt has an opinion. Everybody has an opinion.
Exactly. Everybody has one.
Everybody has one. And there's things that's out there that I don't necessarily think is great that someone else does think is great. Sometimes I'll say to the band, I'm like, man, I don't get that. They're like, their joke is, well, someone else does, and they're like huge in some scenes. So yeah, that's my advice.
Jeffrey, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this. Like Eric was saying before, it really has been one of our most insightful and favorite interviews that we've done. You have shared such an enormous wealth of information on so many levels. I'm very, very grateful to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Guys, my pleasure. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you again. What an inspirational interview.
Yeah,
really.
This one was great.
I mean,
really great.
Just one of the most inspirational. He is so incredible. This is such a centered guy who really knows what he's talking about, and he knows from doing it.
Right.
He knows from doing it. Jeffrey is somebody who I've had in my classes. He's somebody who I've had, as a guest before, and he is, always just receives such incredible marks, and now you can see why.
Right.
Right from the get-go, I think one of the most interesting things that he talked about was the whole concept of vision casting.
Right.
And what that actually means is sitting back and saying, what is the vision you have for your music?
Right.
What is the vision you have for the audience you want? How you want to be perceived? I mean, all of it. The whole vision that you have for putting your music and your art out in the world.
Yeah.
That's what he was talking about. And I thought just that whole concept of vision casting, and he says that it never stops.
Right. You're constantly replaying that and reworking it, and and just really vision casting for everything, strategically, tactically, everything, Where do you see yourself in 6 months? Where do you see the project in a year, and 2 years, 5 years? So yeah, I think it's a really great concept.
And the concept of vision casting for everyone on your team.
Exactly.
Very, very important.
Right.
Because it's not just about you.
Right.
It's about your manager. It's about your agent. It's about your producers. It's about the people you're in partnership with. It's about the label. It's about, all of those aspects that are so, so important. And, that's why I thought this was such an interesting concept that he speaks about. And he speaks about the importance of the team.
Right.
That when you get to a certain level, especially like when you get signed, and this is usually something that when you do get signed, you start that process, because the team usually starts, the element of the team that happens usually before, maybe a manager.
Right.
Sometimes an attorney.
Right.
And then it builds from there. Once you have a recording, then, there's certain expectations that you're going to market that recording.
Right.
You're going to need an agent, publicists,
right.
marketing people, social media people, label people, all of those kinds of things. And the whole aspect of understanding who and what you are in terms of your vision has to be crystal clear, because you have to be able to communicate that to them. And I thought that was such an interesting concept.
Yeah, and also I thought in regards to what are the most important elements of, artist management, and I thought it was really great because, you could just tell that the work ethic that he has paid out dividends for Echosmith and all the projects he's worked under. But, I was really enamored with what he was saying about getting stuff every day and just grinding, and about how he talked about making those calls, sending out those emails, getting something every day, then getting maybe something bigger during the week, and then like during the month getting something very big, and it was just building and building and building and building to kind of have that snowball effect.
Absolutely. And I think that's like any successful business.
Yeah.
I've recently been rereading one of the autobiographies on David Geffen.
Right.
And it's interesting. I mean, they go back to his history when he was just like, a young guy. And this is a guy who used to spend his vacations when he was just a mailroom guy in the William Morris Agency. He would spend his vacations out in California at the William Morris Agency to learn how they operated.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, it was extraordinary. This is a guy whose whole life, was about enmeshing his personal and professional career. And, obviously he's one of the most legendary, successful people ever in the music business. I mean, and when Jeffrey was speaking about this, it reminded me of that, what you were just speaking about, that every day you got to be doing something.
And I think one of the two other quick points that were just actually crucial that I thought was, being the manager, you are the quarterback of the team, of the entire team, and all the, kind of cogs in the wheel. But what I thought was the most critical thing that he talked about was having a mission statement. I think every band, every artist out there that's listening to this right now needs to kind of craft their own mission statement about what they represent and what it is that they're about, because I think that helps crystallize everything else moving forward.
Absolutely. It's extremely important because it gives you a sense of where you go from there.
Yeah.
In other words, what is your mission? Is your mission to entertain? Is your mission to spread love and joy? Is your mission to get your message or whatever that message is out to the world? What is it?
And also about bringing purpose to it all, and obviously being a cheerleader for the team. Like, when he talked about Echosmith going to Hamburg for 7 or 8 times, and they knew how the Germans work, where they have every second of their day, kind of mapped out, and they might have 50 to 70 things that they have to do, and they weren't maybe necessarily, up for it. They have to kind of, he has to kind of be that cheerleader and bring them on. And I thought what was really great was the idea of that 1 million people want your spot. So how hard are you willing to work for that?
Yes. Absolutely. And that's part of that whole vision casting, never forgetting that, and not in a negative way,
right? But
to really own the perspective of, why are you doing this?
Right. And do you know how many people want to be doing what you're doing?
Exactly. It's funny. I'm reminded of a friend who once said, when he was a kid, he said, when he was a child and he wouldn't finish his plate, and his mother said, "Now you've got to finish your food, Arnold. Children in Europe are starving." He came up with this line. He said, "Oh yeah, give me names and addresses," which I thought was, but it's to your point that, that's so true. You got to keep this, how fortunate are you that you're in Germany, that a label actually has 40 things for you to do.
Exactly.
I'd
be dying for that, right?
Yeah, better that than you're at home with no one paying attention.
Exactly.
So there are worse problems to have. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I thought also about when we talked about the importance of a team and building in an artist's career, and we've been talking and harping about this, about great songs, and it all starts with the music, but building that team around you to have that success. Building, I like what he said building the right team is crucial, building the wrong team is painful.
Yes.
And I thought that was really,
and
poignant.
we've all done that. We've all had elements where, wrong members, and it's varying degrees. You have people who are on and it's just not working. They don't get what you're about, or they don't have the time or the energy or the commitment. They may be nice people, but it's
finding
painful.
People that are passionate about the project and leading the team, and he has to be the cheerleader for them too, and kind of telling them,
yes,
hey, this is what we're doing, and so and actually when he's reaching out to new people in the team and saying, what are you going to bring to the table, whether it's a music publisher or whoever it happens to be.
Getting them to be accountable
Correct.
for their word. Getting them to vision cast for their contribution.
Exactly.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, exactly. And then, finally, in terms of advice, and, again, harping on this again, and he kind of said it best, write the best songs of your life.
Yeah.
And I thought this is one that we haven't heard much of, which I'm really a big fan of, which is getting mentors surrounded in your different areas that you can kind of, talk to and bounce ideas off of. And, what is that saying? You're the total of the 4 or 5 people around you.
Yes.
And so I think having mentors in those different areas, I think really help quite a bit. And, he was saying it in a joking way, but, sending the 100 emails a day, every day to build on that, but to make sure that you've got something that's sellable and something that sounds great to do that.
And that means having the priority of making the songs as best as they can be, not just, the first batch of songs you write and sending that out. You never have another chance to make a first impression. He did say one thing which I thought was really important in that too, Eric, in terms of his advice, which is, if music is going to be your career, become a student of culture. You don't operate in a vacuum. It's not all about just you.
Right.
Understand, culture. Understand the culture that you're going into. That's absolutely crucial.
Hey Insiders, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. To get show notes, links, and everything that was mentioned during this interview, head on over to our official website at mubutv.com/podcast/show notes. If you're enjoying the content and what we're doing here on the show, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts from. And don't forget to rate and review our show over at iTunes. 5-star reviews are always welcome and help to ensure that our podcast stands out on the top rated and new and noteworthy charts on iTunes in our space. You can also find us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all ending with the handle MUBUTV, which is spelled MUBUTV. Don't forget to catch our flagship show, the MUBUTV Insider Video Series, airing every week on YouTube at youtube.com/MUBUTV. This show was produced and created by Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight. This show would not be here if it weren't for our amazing team, which are the following: interview editors Sarah Nissenbaum and Alex Taylor, show notes and transcriptions by Jani Chang, Nicole Capodoglo, Lilia Owens, and Sarah Nissenbaum, theme music by Disciples of Babylon, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the MUBUTV Insider Podcast.